In this video I finished the Tower of Hanoi game, so we can click play with 3 discs and we can try to grab the bottom one. It doesn't go. The middle one doesn't go, but if we grab the top one, we're able to move it around. And you'll see if I hold it over a post that it can be dropped down, we increase the border radius on that post, and if we take it away we put it back to normal. So that gives the visitors some sort of visual feedback that they can drop it. And obviously I can't drop it on the current post, so if I try and drop there, it's going to revert back. If I put it anywhere on the page, that will revert back. But if we put it over a post that they can drop on, it goes up to the top and then it goes down. So now we have to reset which disk can be dragged. So obviously this bottom one can't be dragged, but the one on top of it can now because it's the top disk. And you'll see that I cannot place this one on the middle one because it has a smaller disk below it, and that breaks the rules of the game. So we revert back in that case. But if I put it on top of the post that has nothing there, then it can drop down. And if I grab this largest one here, you see there's nowhere to put it because these are both smaller. So all it can do is revert back to its original position. Also, if somebody was doing the demo before this, for example 3-disc demo or 4-disc demo, and suddenly they click the play with this one, then we need to kill that animation, and then we set it back so they can play with the discs. So I'm just going to go briefly over how I did this, and I'm not going to be able to talk about everything, but I'm going to leave the URL for this game, so if you like you can go there and you can download the JavaScript and put it inside your text editor and look at it. And the URL is anthonyvipon.com/Hanoi. So let's go over the code and just see briefly what went on here. The thing that I want to talk about the most in this video is just data, because what I found from making this game and also the Connect 4 game earlier than that is actually doing all the logic for the game is pretty easy if you've stored the data in a way that's easy to access, and that was really the main thing. So if we right click here in Firebug and we'll go to DOM, and we'll click on our game one here. So I just want to show you how I stored data in this game, and that was really the key for all of it working. So we have if we go let's just refresh this first, get a fresh page, and we'll click play with 3 discs, and then we'll close game and open it up again. And you'll see that there's this disk map variable right here, and disk map is an array of arrays, and you can see that this disk map was one of the key parts of this game in storing data. So if the person decided to play with 3 disks, we know that we're always going to have 3 columns, so that's why we have an array of 3 arrays. And then after they click 3, we have that number 3, and then we know that each array can only be 3 elements long. So really what we end up with, if they clicked on play with 3 discs, is we're going to get a grid of 3 by 3. And if they clicked play with 4 discs, we're going to get a grid of 3 columns and 4 rows. So that was really the key to storing data in this game. And you'll see, like right here we have 0, and 0 is an array of 0, 1, 2. Okay, and the 0 is the top disk, and 1 is the middle one, and 2 is the bottom one. So it's sort of like by creating this array of arrays, it was easy to visualize the game and the disk position in this array, because really they're the same. So using a grid to store data worked well for me in this game, and if you think about it, a multi-dimensional array is a grid. So we have 0, 1, 2, and if I move this top disk to the middle one, for example, and we drop it, and then we refresh the disk map, you'll see that now we have undefined 1, 2. Okay, so the top position right here is undefined, and then we have disk 1, disk 2, and then in column 1, which is the second column, we have undefined at the top, undefined in the middle, and then 0 at the bottom, and then the third one is all undefined. And we can see that one more time. I'll move this to the third row and refresh here, and then you'll see the second row is all undefined. The second row is undefined, and the last row is undefined, undefined 0. So that's how I was able to keep track of where these disks were at all the time. And this disk map array worked in conjunction with this draggable grid array. And really, once I had that information of where the disks were in the disk map, I was able to use this draggable grid array. So basically all we did in this draggable grid array was, this one is also, an array of arrays, 3 by 3, and it keeps track of which disk can be dragged. So basically what we were doing is we were looping through our disk map, and as soon as we found a disk on top, we actually looped through the bottom, and without going into too much detail, we were checking for where is the top disk, and once we found the top disk, we're setting that as 1, and the other ones were undefined. So then we have 0, 1, 0. So at the bottom of the draggable grid, obviously this last one's undefined because we can't drag it. So basically this one, we're just marking 1 where the disk can be dragged. Okay, and there was also this droppable post, and this droppable post is also this is an array that gets updated on the fly when they actually click on one of the disks, and then that's going to update with the post. So basically everything for this game was just stored in multi-dimensional arrays, and making the game was easy this way because I was always able to open up the console and refer to my arrays here and see, where are the disks right now, where are the posts, and things like that. So if we go over to the code here, and let's just take a quick look at this. These things we talked about before. You can see the draggable grid is set to, it's an array of arrays. And how many elements should we have in each array? Well, the disk amount. So I just passed that in here inside the new array constructor. We looked at populate disk before. We can check set draggable grid quickly, and that's right here. So this is we're looping through both arrays. So for var I is set to 0, I is less than 3. So here we're just looping through the number of columns, which is always 3. That's why I have 3 hard-coded in there. And then I'm doing a backwards loop here from the bottom. And the reason why I do a backwards loop is because I want to start from the bottom and go up to the top. So var j is set to game diskmap.length. So this will be 3. It just checks the amount of disks that are on the first column. So this will be 3 in the first, if we click 3 for the game. So var j is set to game disk length -1, which gives us 2. As long as j is greater than -1, j minus minus. So this is going to loop 3 times. And then what I do after that is I check, is it a number? And in JavaScript, the way to check if something a number is this, not is nan. Okay, because is nan will tell you if something is not a number. So if we put not is nan, then we know something's a number. And that's just the way in JavaScript you check if something is a number. So if not is nan, game disk map, we're starting from the bottom of the column and we're checking if it's a number. And if it is a number, then we're setting it to 1. Okay, and then what I have to do after that is I have to check if there is something under that 1, and if there is, I'm setting it to undefined. The reason I have to do this one below here, if game draggable grid j+1, we're checking the one below it, and if there is an element that exists below it, we're setting it to undefined. And the reason for that is in this set draggable grid, we can only have the top disk to be draggable. Okay, we can't just loop through everything like this and everything we find a number, set it as draggable. We have to set the top one as draggable, and then if there was one lower than it, then we set it as undefined. And you can see that reflected here in the draggable grid. So you'll see like disk map here is undefined 1, 2, but draggable grid we have undefined 1 and then undefined. So you'll see what I did first was draggable grid 0 sub 2, this one right here. Originally I set that, sorry, let's go back to it. Originally I set that to 1, but what I did after that was we kept looping through, and then we found a disk in this second position. And then when we found that disk in the second position, we set that to 1, and then we checked if there was, if the one below it had a number, and we checked if it existed. And if it did exist, then we set it to undefined. And then when it looped the next time and it got to this first array, we saw that that's not a number, so we didn't do anything. And then the loop continued into the next iteration and going on to the next post. The next thing that we were doing in this game click function on the game initiation was we're running the set draggable function. So we can go over to that, which is up here. And for the set draggables, we're looping through the amount of posts, and then we're looping through all of the disks on the post, like this. And then we are checking if that first element, if it's a number, and we're checking if the game draggable grid ij is equal to 1. So basically all we're doing here is we're checking, well, is in the disk map, is that a number? Okay, if it's a number, then we know there's a disk there. But we have to check if that disk is draggable, and we do that by comparing this one to the draggable grid. So if game draggable grid ij is also equal to 1, well then we know it can be dragged, and then we're going to give it the draggable functionality right here. So disk concatenate on j and then draggable. And after that we pass it some options. This is using jQuery UI, by the way. And the first option we're passing is we're setting containment to document. And what this does is it stops the disk from being able to be dragged off the page. And if I drag this off, then we start getting scroll bars, but that prevents you from getting the scroll bars on the left and right. And the next thing we're doing is revert invalid. And I was really happy when I found this one, because basically what this option does for you is unless the draggable piece was dragged into a valid droppable zone, like this post, it will revert back. Okay, so by doing that, unless it was dropped where it's supposed to, it's always going to revert back. And the next thing is cursor pointer. Just gives the user a bit more visual feedback that they can drag it. And then we're using this start option right here. And start is set to a callback function. So the great thing about jQuery UI and this draggable and droppable is that there are so many things you can set callback functions for. So for example, as soon as we start dragging something, then we can run a function. And there's a lot of other ones, and you can see them in jQuery UI's documentation. And the first thing I'm doing here is we're getting the current disk number. So we're getting this .adderID. This right now is referring to the one that's currently being dragged right here. We get its ID, and then what we do is, because that ID was something like disk 0, well, all I want from that is the 0. And the way I do that is we put on this char at method. So this is just regular JavaScript, char at, and then this adderID, and then .length -1. That will give you the last character. And then I'm going to have, like, for example, if it was disk 1, well, now I'm going to have 1 as a string, but I want that to be an integer, so I just run parseInt on that. And we store that in current disk number. And then for the source post, I run this function, get source post, and we pass it the current disk number. Okay, and we can go over to that function. And I think that'll be the last function I talk about in this video. And let's find the get source post, and here it is. So function get source post, and it takes the disk number, which is an integer. First we declare undefined variable source post. Its value set to undefined, and then we loop through the amount of columns, and then we loop through the amount of disks. And if the disk map ij, if it's equal to disk number, then source post is set to I. Okay, so this is how we can find what post did that disk just come from, by going source post is set to I, and then we return source post. Okay, and then we just have some error checking here. So if source post was identical to undefined, then alert, source post not found. So hopefully we'll never see this, because every disk should be coming from one of the posts.